I am a full-time mother of 2 children, and my husband and I live in 2 different places. In order to earn extra money to supplement the family income, I worked part-time as an online sleep coach without telling my husband. Unexpectedly, one day, I found that the person I coaxed to sleep was actually my husband. He said he was trapped in love and had been suffering from insomnia for a long time. At that moment, I felt like I was falling into an ice cellar. The excitement starts right away. If you like it, please help and click to subscribe. At 11:30 p.m., after confirming once again that the children were asleep, I quickly logged into the app and prepared to connect via microphone. I am a part-time sleep therapist who works late at night. It is my job to help customers fall asleep quickly. I have been doing this job secretly without telling my husband for more than half a year. But the person I'm going to coax to sleep tonight is a little special, because he is a monthly client of my colleague Emily. Emily and her online crush were successfully dating, and the two were going to travel to New Zealand. She didn't want her new boyfriend to know that she was a sleep coach, so she asked me for help and asked me to pretend to be her online for a few days. To be honest, I was a little nervous, mainly because I was afraid of being exposed. I was afraid that the other party would hear the mistake and give the store and Emily a bad review. That person likes the lowly voice and doesn't talk much. He usually asks us to sing or tell stories. Our voices are similar, and if we add some music, he probably won't be able to tell the difference. Emily comforted me and sent me a voice note asking me to imitate the tone and speed of her voice when she was coaxing me to sleep. I imitated for a day before I started working with trepidation. This is a customer named Lynn Shibafogio. Except for the username, all other information is blank. While we were connected to the microphone, I cleared my throat and adjusted my voice to be as similar to Emily's as possible. Hello sir, can't sleep again? Shall we tell a story or listen to music today? Sing a song. A low and slightly magnetic voice came from the other side, which made me stunned. This voice? Why does it sound so much like Robert? Which song would you like to hear? Whatever. Wow, even the perfunctory tone is exactly the same. If we hadn't been talking in this mode, I would have thought the person on the other end was Robert. I am so familiar with his voice. The epidemic has recurred this year and control measures have been implemented in various places. So far, Robert has not been home for 11 months. The only thing I can hear every day is his voice. I sighed, pulled my thoughts back to my senses, found a soothing song from Emily's playlist, and started singing softly. About half an hour later, I hung up the phone when I heard the even snoring from the other end. But somehow, that voice similar to Robert's kept lingering in my mind and couldn't be shaken off all night. I guess I must have missed Robert too much. The next day, I told Emily about it as a joke. Unexpectedly, Emily made a fuss. Is it so similar? Could it be the real one? You'd better check the one in your family. PTFF, what are you checking? My Robert doesn't have such a need. He video chats with me at 10 o'clock every night, and I watch him go to bed. Alright, you husband-protecting demon. After hanging up the phone, I got up and went to the living room to prepare for work. My main job is dubbing audio novels. I am a contracted anchor for a certain novel platform. The work is flexible and I get more pay for more work. As a housewife with 2 children, I am very satisfied to have such a job. In fact, in the first 2 years, like many mothers in the same situation, I was extremely anxious about whether I could earn extra income while taking good care of my children. My best friend advised me to become a lifestyle blogger, record videos every day, show my face, and after gaining followers, I can live broadcast and sell goods on the shared bikes, which will earn me much more than working. But I don't want to show my face, let alone expose my private life to the camera, and Robert will definitely not agree. So in the end, I didn't become a blogger, but an audio host. I have a good voice and worked as an announcer at the school radio station when I was in college. After setting my goal, I signed up for several dubbing training sessions, sent my 2.5-year-old twins to full-time daycare, and began to show my talents. When I got my first pay, I excitedly sent a WeChat message to Robert in Gansu to show off and tell him that I was finally able to share the burden of life with him. Robert was very happy. He said, "Wife, if we work hard together like this for a few years, we will be able to live a happy life together." I was looking forward to the days of reunion, so from then on I took as many orders as possible and earned more money. Later, a sister in the circle opened an internet celebrity sleep coaxing studio, which was said to have a good income. I was blinded by the money and worked as a part-time sleep coaxing therapist there without telling my husband. I thought that if I could hold on for another year, I would have the confidence to persuade Robert to quit that high-paying but remote company and find a job closer to home. As I was thinking this, my phone suddenly vibrated. Emily was calling again. Eh? I suddenly remembered something. One time, my client was on a live call. He was drunk and talking to himself. He said that he had done something to let his wife down and felt like a jerk. He kept mumbling as if he was confessing his sins. In the end, he even called out a person's name and said he was sorry to her. "What's the name?" I asked casually while printing the script to be recorded, without noticing Emily's deliberate pause. "Morning." My hand that was scratching the manuscript paper paused, feeling a little unbelievable. "Chin-Chin?" I didn't take it seriously at first. There are so many people named Chin-Chin in this world. But after hearing what you said just now, I feel something is wrong. This is too coincidental. Jiang Chen, you'd better pay attention. Relationships between people who are separated from each other are most likely to have problems. Isn't my damn ex-husband an example? Emily's ex-husband was a returnee from overseas. He was entrusted with important tasks by the company and flew around all day long. The days of separation led him to have an affair with a dancer. They didn't know about it until they had a child. Emily was so angry that she went to her ex-husband's and the mistress's company and divorced him quickly after making a scene. She told me countless times that living apart is indeed a killer of the relationship between couples. But I don't think Robert would do that. I still have confidence in our relationship. Robert and I were college classmates. We both came from ordinary families and had no one to help us, so we had been working hard to make money since our senior year. I was lucky as I got a good offer in the second semester of my senior year, but Robert was a bit unlucky. He encountered setbacks in interviews and had to start with sales, which had the lowest threshold. Half a year after graduation, I got pregnant unexpectedly. The fraternal twins on the diagnosis made us waver in our initial idea of having an abortion. In the end, we got married and kept the baby. We didn't have a wedding house or a car, and even our wedding was a group wedding we signed up for to save money. But these shabby things didn't affect our rapidly growing sense of happiness. It is true that love is enough to satisfy one's hunger. 10 months later, the babies were born, a boy and a girl. We were delighted but also worried about how to take care of them. Robert comes from a single-parent family. His parents remarried a long time ago and had no time to take care of him. When they heard that their child was born, they only gave him a symbolic red envelope of 3,000 yuan and had no intention of helping him at all. And my mother is even less reliable. Ever since my brother got married, and especially with the birth of my nephews and nieces, my mother has completely become the nanny of my brother and sister-in-law's family, and cannot leave her side for a moment. So after much deliberation, I was the only one who made the sacrifice and quit my job to become a full-time mother. Robert felt more and more stressed and started looking for more ways to make money. It happened that his company wanted to expand into the Northwest market and needed to send someone to be a pioneer. The generous salary and promotion opportunities offered by the company made Robert quite tempted. He said he would seize this opportunity, work hard for a few years, and buy a house and a car for me and the children. So when the children were half a year old, Robert left and we began to live apart. So far, it has been 2 years. In those 2 years, I did make a lot of money, but my relationship was not unaffected. I answered Robert's calls countless times while I was struggling to take care of my 2 children. He always spoke in a negative tone, saying that he missed me and the children and wanted to feel the warmth of a normal family, and that it was too lonely over there for him. I am not a person who values material things. Whenever Robert said this, I would ask him, why not come back and find a job with a normal income? But Robert always refused, saying that he couldn't stand the hard work of working like a slave for a low salary. He said he would rather stick with it for the higher salary. I always thought he could do what he said. But what Emily said today made me feel uneasy. The client named Lin Shibafoggio is obviously called Robert. Could he really be Robert? I decided to check the truth myself. I chose a group photo of the children from my mobile phone, sent it to the photography shop downstairs to be developed and framed, and then hung a tassel ball that I had woven by hand below it. The tassel ball is plump and stuffed with high-quality cotton, making it soft and cottony to hold without any foreign body sensation. No one knows except me, but I have stuffed a pocket-sized car locator inside it, which has super long standby time and real-time recording, and the client app is installed on my mobile phone. This is the only way I can think of to get a glimpse into Robert's privacy. I am an emotional person and tend to act impulsively. After receiving Emily's call that day, I wanted to pick up the child from school and rush to the station to find Robert. I wanted to see with my own eyes whether it was him who was on the live broadcast late at night, and when he developed the sleep disorder. But I finally gave up the idea, because I remembered that time last year when I took the children to visit Robert on my own initiative. It was a 23-hour journey, and before we were halfway through, my second child started vomiting and having diarrhea, which made me and the flight attendant very exhausted. Later, we finally arrived at Robert's place. The two children were not used to the local climate and had fevers one after another. They stayed in the hospital for half a month. Their originally chubby cheeks became sunken, and I felt so distressed that I wanted to slap myself. So after that, I never dared to take the children there again because of the fatigue. I took advantage of the afternoon break after picking up the kids from school to go to the courier station and mail the photos to Robert. In the next few days, I tracked the logistics information and called the moment the courier signed for the package. Robert had already unpacked the package. He asked me, "Why are there only photos of the children? Where are yours, wife?" I said, "I don't think you really want to see me." Robert scolded, "Honey, what are you talking about? You are my wife. I want to see you in my dreams. Be good, send me a separate photo later. I want to hang you both in the living room and look at you every day." I agreed with a smile, tears almost rolling down my face. I think I must have been schizophrenic at that moment. My left brain told me, "Look, this is still the Robert who loves you so much, why do you doubt him? Just based on a similar voice and repeated name?" But my right brain keeps reminding me that the voices are 99% similar, the names are 100% the same, and the man is also called Robert. These three coincidences added to the same thing are no longer coincidences. I think back to the past few days when I was tormented and unable to sleep at night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the image of Robert hugging another woman. I had already decided in my heart that he had changed his mind, so when I was choosing photos, I didn't dare to include myself in them. I was afraid that he would throw my photos into the trash, and my plans would be ruined. Robert thought what I said was a joke, but only I knew that those were my true thoughts. After hanging up the phone, I was depressed for a long time before I forced myself to be busy. We'll just have to wait till tonight to find out. When the clock pointed to 10 in the evening, I tucked in the corners of the quilts for the children who were already sleeping soundly, then got up quietly and went to the living room to request a video chat with Robert. This is the project we do every night without fail after Robert went to Gansu. But this time the phone rang for a long time before it was connected, and Robert said he was taking a shower. He held up his cell phone, and the half of his arm exposed in the camera was covered with water droplets. He wiped it roughly with a bath towel as he walked. But his hair was dry, and there seemed to be a hint of anger on his face. "What happened? You don't look well," I asked tentatively. "Ah? Oh, I was in a hurry to answer your call, and I slipped and hurt my knee," Robert said stutteringly and raised his eyebrows at the camera. But my intuition tells me that this shouldn't be the case. I pretended to be calm and chatted with him casually. Half an hour later, I hung up the phone and opened the app immediately. Then, I heard a conversation that shocked me. "Why are you here again? Didn't I make it very clear last time?" It was Robert. "The beef brisket soup I made today is really delicious. You should try it." It was an unfamiliar voice belonging to a young girl. "Ava, please don't do this. I'm married. I have a wife and children. We can't." The unfinished word stopped abruptly in a slight sob. "I know you must still be blaming me for getting you drunk that day, but I just like you. I liked you from the first moment I saw you. I did that just to keep you." "Robert, didn't you say you like days with fireworks the most? I can cook and wash clothes. As long as you agree, I am willing to take care of you for your wife." "Ava, please don't be so aggressive. Can you give me some time? You don't know, ever since that happened, I've been suffering from insomnia for days and nights. I'm especially afraid that my wife will find out and divorce me one day. She won't know. If you don't tell her and I don't tell her, how will she know? And I promise that I will never destroy your family." The video call prompt sounded at this time. "You go first." The sound of pushing and shoving, the sound of the door opening. It turns out it was really Robert. I was shaking all over. I never thought Robert would betray me, and it caught me off guard. That night, it took me a long time to calm down from my initial anger, but the sadness that followed almost overwhelmed me. Giving birth to children for him, sharing his worries and difficulties, enduring the torment of being separated from him, is not as good as a bowl of soup with the flavor of fireworks from a girl. Which couple who are separated from each other does not suffer alone in keeping their promise? He complains about the loneliness of living alone, but haven't I ever been driven to collapse and feel lost by loneliness and bustle? But why can I endure it but he can't? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I was wavering between divorce and forbearance. Emotions are teaching us that betrayal is unforgivable, not even once. But reason is persuading, the child is still young and life is too heavy, and the impact of a single-parent family on a child is immeasurable. It is better to turn a blind eye and choose to forgive. After all, he was drunk. It was in the midst of this evenly matched stalemate that I suddenly received a call from Robert with the good news. He said he got news from his colleagues that in view of his outstanding performance in the past 2 years, the company's top management intends to transfer him back to the headquarters to entrust him with important tasks, and the notice will be given in 2 weeks at most. Wife, I'm finally going back. We can finally be reunited. Wife, wait for me. He was shouting excitedly and incoherently on the phone, as if he had been looking forward to it for thousands of years. But I didn't feel any joy at all. But his full emotions infected me, and a hint of anticipation inexplicably rose in my heart, which had been tangled for a long time. I hope he can be honest with me, help me get over the hurdle in my heart, and then we can reconcile. But it didn't. After returning home, Robert avoided talking about what happened outside, as if it were a terrible thing. But the more he tried to cover it up, the angrier I got, but I couldn't point it out to him. This contradiction made me depressed every day, and I began to reject all of Robert's advances. On the night of Robert's promotion party, he came home drunk, hugged me, and whispered in my ear, "Wife, we will live a good life soon." After he said that, he came over and kissed me with great force. I felt evil in my heart, but couldn't break free, so in a rage, I bit his shoulder hard. Robert, who was bitten hard by me, woke up. He stood up and turned his head to look at the 2 rows of teeth marks on his shoulder. His eyes were full of disbelief. "Honey, are you really biting me? Honey, what's wrong with you? Since I came back, I feel like you've become a different person." I didn't wait for him to finish his words and went to the children's bedroom with the clothes. I tossed and turned all night. I feel like if this continues, I'll go crazy sooner or later. I went to see a psychiatrist. After listening to my story, the doctor asked me, "You love your husband very much, right? You don't want to get a divorce, do you?" I don't understand. You may not realize that in your previous story, you always unconsciously emphasized that he did not cheat on you on purpose, but was drunk by the other party. This shows that you are still defending your husband subconsciously, and you think that one night stand was not his fault. You were angry and resentful later on, and you didn't want to be intimate with him because you felt he wasn't honest with you. But why did you insist on his honesty? You saw how he behaved after he came home. He treated you and the children the same as always, which shows that he still cared about you and this family, and he really wanted to live with you. I think that when facing a husband who has made a mistake for the first time, especially one like your husband who did not do it on purpose, you can give him a chance to observe the consequences. Besides, he has realized his mistake, feels guilty towards you, and has taken the initiative to return to the family. This kind of man can be forgiven. Forgive him once, don't dwell on it any further, and just pretend that nothing happened. He will remember your kindness in his heart, and your relationship will become even stronger. After coming out of the doctor's office, I took the elevator to the rooftop and enjoyed some fresh air. Finally, I decided to listen to the doctor, reconcile with myself, and give Robert another chance for the sake of my children. I went to the market, bought some of Robert's favorite vegetables, picked up the kids, and started to show off my skills in the kitchen. Robert hadn't been treated like this for a long time. He looked at the table full of dishes and felt a little moved. He hugged me tightly and said, "Wife, we will be fine from now on. Okay, let's move on from this." I responded like this in my heart. After reconciliation between Robert and I, life seemed to be on a roll. I have quit my job as a sleep coach and have been concentrating on audio recording. My hard work has paid off. Just last week, I received an invitation to record a 1,000,000-word novel, and the remuneration was quite good. Robert adapted to his new position very quickly. The experience and training he gained in the frontline market over the past 2 years were enough for him to stand on his own. He began to move towards becoming a successful person. He seemed to have completely cut off contact with the girl. I once secretly checked his mobile phone on a whim, but didn't find any clues. So I felt more at ease. We bought a car, which wasn't a very good one, but was just the right size for getting around. We also looked at a house together, and it was a second-hand house in a school district. The price was a bit expensive, and we hadn't yet reached an agreement. Everything is moving in the right direction. I thought life had finally returned to normal, and I thought time had finally lived up to my reconciliation. Until one day 2 months later, I saw Robert hugging a girl and entering a high-end apartment next to the company. That day was Friday, a weekday. I went at Synopsis station to mail a contract and happened to pass by Robert's company. At 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the summer in the north, the sunlight is still dazzling. But I was sure I was not seeing things. Robert, dressed in a suit and tie, was hugging a girl in a white shirt and a JK skirt, and they were talking and laughing as they walked towards a high-end apartment not far from his company. Robert put his hand on the girl's slender waist and rubbed it as he walked. Perhaps it was because her ticklish spot was tickled, the girl dodged with a smile, but was pulled back into Robert's arms. The movements are skillful and old-fashioned, dazzling and heartbreaking. After I calmed down from my extreme surprise and shock, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The first time is the second time, familiarity is the first time. You are great, Robert. After being cheated on again, I was so disheartened that I didn't even think about my inner thoughts. There was only one thought in my mind: I want to know who that girl is. I used various methods to check the girl's identity. At first, I thought she was a small employee in Robert's company, the kind who curried favor with the powerful and tried to curry favor with them in order to get a promotion and a raise. For this purpose, I specially took a day off and stayed in his company several times on the pretext of delivering coffee to Robert, but after looking around, I couldn't find anyone with a back that resembled that girl. I also used the spare key to get into Robert's car in the middle of the night under the pretext of taking out the trash to look for clues, but still found nothing. I am very confused about this. It wasn't until one day, when a neighbor who lived in the same community came to my door, that I discovered the clue. This neighbor's car scratched an electric bike and was blackmailed by the owner of the electric bike. However, because the accident happened to take place on a secondary road where there were no cameras and the neighbor's car did not have a dash cam installed, he had no way to defend himself. Later he remembered that Robert's car was in the lane next to his, so he came to Robert's house, hoping that Robert could retrieve the driving recorder to prove his innocence. It was a piece of cake, but Robert unexpectedly refused. He said, "What a coincidence, the video in the dash cam had been accidentally deleted by him." The neighbor went back in disappointment, but Robert's abnormal behavior and unnatural demeanor alerted me. Deleting videos for no reason? After seeing the neighbor off, I pretended to be nonchalant and asked Robert, "Why did you delete the dash cam when it was fine? Are you free?" "Robert, I was just playing around and accidentally pressed delete." I raised my eyebrows, pretending to be regretful, and stood in front of the dressing mirror to adjust my skirt. Oh, what a pity, I could have done a favor. Seeing that I changed the subject, Robert in the dressing mirror let out a sigh behind me. I looked away and snorted in my heart. Thanks to Robert's reminder, I finally found out the identity of the girl. She was the girl who had a one-night stand with Robert. Ava. At the same time, I also learned about their past in Gansu. At that time, Robert and the girl were neighbors on the same floor. Their community was sealed off for a period of time due to the epidemic, and bartering became popular in the community. Robert was fortunate to receive friendly feeding from the girl. After the control was over, Robert would often buy some vegetables and fruits for the girl to express his gratitude. After a few visits, the two became familiar with each other. The girl is good at cooking and Robert likes the smell of fireworks. The girl's appearance brought great spiritual comfort to Robert, who had been wandering in a foreign land for a long time. Later, they had a one-night stand. The girl thought they could move on to a new level, but Robert, who was not mentally prepared, began to back off. Finally, by chance, he returned to his family. He must have thought that returning to his family would allow him to get rid of his distracted thoughts. Unexpectedly, 2 months later, the girl came all the way to follow him. These are what I heard from the GPS car positioning app. Robert bought a car after he got promoted. Considering that we live in an old neighborhood with poor security, in order to prevent theft, I installed the locator that I had previously stuffed in the tassel ball in Robert's car, and the app is always on my phone. Because I had thrown away the instruction manual and packaging box of the locator a long time ago, I felt that I could not explain to Robert how a half-new locator suddenly appeared in my home, so when I installed it, I did not let Robert know at all. Robert thought that everything would be fine after deleting the dash cam, but he didn't expect that there was another ear hidden in the car. The app can only save the records of the last 15 days. I listened to them all. I don't know the specific day when the girl named Ava came after me, but what is certain is that she made the right bet. She successfully impressed Robert with her desperate attempt and long journey. As he said in the recording, "In my life, Robert, I never thought that there would be a girl who would do this for me. I am so touched. He has completely fallen for me and no longer feels any guilt towards me." Once again, I felt heartbroken and desperate about Robert's betrayal. I found an excuse to get Robert drunk and picked up his phone again. After great effort, I finally found the WeChat clone application that he had deliberately hidden from a pile of folders on his phone. When I clicked on it, I found that I only had one friend, and the chat box was filled with the two of them flirting with each other. What shocked me was that the girl said that she would be able to start working at my child's school as early as next month, filling in for the life teacher who was about to go on maternity leave. The children's original life teacher was named Lee, and she is more than 8 months pregnant. Recently, every afternoon when I pick up the children, I hear other parents talking about how teacher Lee will soon go on maternity leave. They wonder if the new life teacher will care about the children as much as teacher Lee. After listening to it many times, I began to look forward to what the new life teacher would be like. But I didn't expect it to be her. What I didn't expect was that she asked Robert so bluntly if he would consider divorce if she could make my 2 children like her. She even began to look forward to their life after marriage, saying that after they got married, the children would be left in the care of her mother, which would not affect their life as a 2-person world at all. To be honest, over the years, Robert and I have had very little time to ourselves. We only lived together in the 2nd semester of our senior year, and within less than a year, I got pregnant unexpectedly. Then we lived apart, so Robert had many complaints about this. He often said that if he could do it again, he would never have a child so early and would spend a few more years of our time together. I didn't expect Ava could think of targeted poverty alleviation in this kind of thing. Robert's reply was, "It all depends on your ability." The attitude is ambiguous, it can be offensive or defensive, and it is extremely inflammatory. I took screenshots of all their chat records and sent them to my phone. "I won't forgive you this time." A week later, I met Ava formally at the school gate. I have to admit that she is really beautiful. Even wearing the t-shirt distributed by school teachers, she is definitely the most eye-catching one standing in the crowd. It's a pity that such a good girl doesn't do anything. Ava obviously saw me too. She walked quickly towards me and greeted me warmly. "Hello, you must be David and Mia's mother. I'm the new life teacher. Nice to meet you." I quickly retracted the sharpness in my eyes, smiled, and shook hands with her. After the greetings, Ava squatted down, took out a colorful reward sticker from her pocket, and waved it in front of the children. "Whoever says he likes the teacher first will have a beautiful little red flower put on his clothes." The 2 children chattered and ran and jumped around her. She smiled and put the reward stickers on the children's chests, then took one in each hand and walked towards the classroom. I didn't move, my eyes followed. She held the hands of my 2 children, tilted her head to talk to one and then to the other, and she even squatted down to help my children retighten their shoelaces. As I watched her trying hard to please the child, I couldn't help but sneer in my heart. At this time, my cell phone rang. It was the real estate salesperson calling to remind me to prepare the documents as I would be transferring the property later. I forgot to mention that the second-hand school district house that Robert and I went to see was bought by me a week ago for $30,000 more than the market price. Robert complained that I didn't understand the market, bought at a high price, and was too impulsive. I was indeed impulsive because I just couldn't bear to see Robert generously spending $2,000 a month in rent to support his lover, but haggling over hundreds or thousands of dollars with the original owner for the new house for me and my children. I felt this was a humiliation to me, so I interrupted his bargaining with the original owner and just signed the contract. I opened my phone and looked at my work notes. I was going to transfer the property at 10 o'clock, and then I had to work on the renovations. Plus, I had several audiobooks waiting to be recorded. I am so busy, time is precious, and the future is promising. So regarding Robert's cheating, I want to resolve this issue quickly. I don't want to, and I don't have the energy to, waste time on such a boring thing. I asked someone to re-Photoshop all the chat records that I had screenshotted from Robert's phone to create the illusion that these chat records were sent to me by Ava in order to force her way to the position. I confronted Robert with the PSED chat history and also sent a copy to Emily so that she could help fan the flames at the right time. Robert was so scared when he saw the chat records. He didn't even argue, but knelt down to apologize to me, crying and saying that he had never thought of doing anything to let me down, and that it was only because the girl was too difficult that he couldn't control himself. He begged me to forgive him for the children's sake, and repeatedly promised that he would completely cut off contact with the girl. Wife, I've only been in this position for less than a year, and now this has become a big deal. How will my boss and colleagues view me? If I lose my job, how will I continue to pay my mortgage? How can I provide a quality life for my children? Don't you still want to travel? Wife, please forgive me. Adults are actually better at making decisions. People tend to seek benefits and avoid harm. Robert clearly knows what he wants. But I didn't expect him to reveal his cards so easily. I had carefully prepared all kinds of sad scenes to keep him calm. But it doesn't matter, at least this trump card gives me great confidence and courage, allowing me to act willfully for once. I want to vent my anger. I looked down at him with a cold face. Let's get a divorce. I don't want anything that has been touched by someone else. As soon as I finished speaking, Robert suddenly stood up from the ground, his face full of disbelief. Wife, what did you say? I say, divorce. Panic spread from Robert's eyes. He tried hard to calm his breath and even stuttered when he spoke. Honey, I was wrong, I was really wrong, I won't dare to do it again, please don't divorce me, okay? I know you are the most generous, can you forgive me again? Just once, okay, honey? He cried and begged while shaking my shoulders, just like he had done to coax me after countless quarrels before. But I am no longer the same person I used to be. After experiencing 2 heart-wrenching betrayals, I have long lost hope in everything about us. So let him cry and I just watched coldly. Robert, who didn't get any response from me, began to have despair and cruelty in his eyes. He stared at me for a full minute, then suddenly turned and ran to the kitchen. After a moment, he came out again with a bone-cutting knife in his hand. I've already said I will change, what else do you want me to do? Do you want me to chop off my fingers before you forgive me? He roared, placed his left little finger across the coffee table, and held up a knife in his right hand, looking very aggressive. If you dare to chop it off, I will forgive you immediately. I was also very aggressive and refused to give in. The 4 eyes were fixed on each other, and it was all a contest. Robert's hand holding the knife handle began to tremble slightly, and beads of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. After a few seconds, he let out a desperate howl, then raised his knife and swung it down. Bang! The wooden rattan coffee table made a dull sound. The blade of the boning knife sank in, and the handle shook slightly. Robert fell to the ground, holding his head in his hands, and sobbing on his knees. He has completely collapsed, both physically and mentally. I looked at all this without blinking my eyes, feeling mixed emotions. I successfully predicted his behavior, but I have to sadly admit that Robert is indeed a scumbag. A selfish and cowardly scumbag. Who does he love? He loves no one except himself. I wrapped my air conditioning shirt around myself and decided that it was time to call it a day. For the next 2 days, I chose to go into a cold war. But Robert was as attentive as a dog. He took a week's leave from the company and stayed by my side all the time. During this time, his cell phone rang countless times. He would take a look at it and then quickly hang up. I sneered in my heart and felt that it was time to take the next step. So I cooked a few dishes, sat down, and had a heart-to-heart talk with him. Under the influence of alcohol, I started to cry, and while crying I helped him recall the difficulties we had experienced in the past 7 years. When it came to the emotional part, I threw a tantrum and asked him at the top of my lungs, "Are you doing this for me? Are you doing this for the children?" Robert was most susceptible to showing weakness. When he saw me crying in grievance, he looked even more ashamed. He rushed over and held my head in his arms, apologizing repeatedly, "Wife, I was wrong, please forgive me this time, I will serve you like a slave in the future. Can I still trust you?" I held back my nausea and continued to numb him. "Believe me, honey. You must believe me. I will change. I will block her phone number and WeChat now and will never contact her again." Robert quickly stood up, took out his phone, and deleted all of Ava's contact information in front of me. After stabilizing Robert, it's Ava's turn next. I have to say that Emily was very helpful. During the short 2 days when Robert and I were confronting each other, Emily had found someone to successfully hype up the topic of school teachers seducing students' parents. The short video made from the chat screenshots was forwarded crazily in the community group and WeChat moments. The school parent group was in an uproar for a while, and I easily gained the sympathy and support of all the mothers in the school. They rushed to the principal's office and demanded that Ava, a scum who knew nothing but acted like an ignorant person, be expelled. Ava never imagined that she would be forced to resign before she could even remember the names of all the children in her class. She couldn't get over this, so the next day on my way home from dropping off the kids, she blocked me and wanted to confront me. She asked me where those chat records came from and why I framed her. I was so angry at her words that I laughed. Did I frame her? I held up the intimate photos of her and Robert that I had saved from her WeChat moments and asked her back, "It wasn't you who seduced my husband? Did I frame you?" Ava was not to be outdone and said confidently, "Maybe you think it's seduction, but in fact, we are truly in love and we are going to get married in the future." Really? It seems you are still in a dream. Then I will tell you the truth. These things were given to me by Robert. He said he was tired of playing with you, but you were too clingy, so he asked me to help him get rid of you. It's that simple. As soon as she said this, Ava's aggressive momentum immediately dropped by half. She pursed her lips and stared at me stubbornly. I don't believe it. Believe it or not. I threw my phone into my bag and turned to leave, but she grabbed me. You must have threatened him. You must have imprisoned him, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have ignored my calls and wouldn't have refused to come out to meet me. She desperately pulled my bag strap, trying to grab the phone in my bag. You ask him to come out and confront me, or I will never believe it even if I die. I calmly pried open her fingers that were holding on to my bag strap one by one and said expressionlessly, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." Ava let out a desperate howl behind me. I thought things would have settled down by now, but not long after I got home, I received a call from Ava saying she had committed suicide by cutting her wrists. The call was from the apartment property management who told Robert that Ava had been sent to the hospital by 120. Robert's face suddenly changed when he heard the news. He grabbed the car keys and was about to run downstairs, but I shouted stop and stopped him. He turned around in embarrassment and said in a hoarse voice, "Wife, no matter what, it's still a life." I walked up to him calmly and said, "Do you really want to break up? If you don't want to break up, then go ahead and let's get divorced. If you want to break up, then break up completely. Don't ask me to clean up your mess later." Robert gritted his teeth and said, "Broken." I started putting on my coat, "Then just stay home." I took a taxi to the hospital. Before entering the ward, I went to the nurse's station and asked about Ava's injuries. The young nurse said that the cut was not big, but the girl was scared when it was first cut, so she called 120 and notified the property management. She is fine now, but the girl insisted on staying in the hospital, saying that she was waiting for her boyfriend to pick her up. I thanked the nurse and understood what was going on. The moment I knocked on the door of the ward, I saw a flash of deep disappointment in Ava's eyes. She had a bandage on her wrist, leaning against the corner of the bed, glanced at me sideways, and turned her head away. I found a random chair and sat down. I can see that he is disappointed, but that is his attitude. Ava remained silent stubbornly. I ignored her and played her the edited recording from my phone. In the recording, Robert emphasized to me again and again that from the beginning to the end, Ava was the one who took the initiative between them. He was just looking for something new and used her as a toy for entertainment, but he had never thought of divorcing me. Ava dropped her head and her shoulders began to shake. I put another key on the cabinet next to her. "I'll leave the key to the apartment with you. The rent is due next month. Now that things have come to this, you should know what to do. But I tell you, even if you really die, it will be in vain. Your parents didn't raise you to ruin yourself like this. No one will feel sorry for you except your parents. At least in my opinion, you are a joke," I said, and stood up and left. The moment the door closed, I heard Ava's suppressed crying. Ava disappeared after she was released from the hospital. The apartment, which was supposed to expire next month, was put back on the rental channel of the local website just a few days after Ava was discharged from the hospital. Also a few days later, when Robert was going to deliver the keys to the decorators in the new house, he was put in a sack and dragged into a corner by several people in the basement and beaten severely. His nose was broken and his face was disfigured. Robert couldn't get over this and forced the property management to check the surveillance. However, he was regretfully informed by them that there was a power outage in the entire community on the day of the incident and the surveillance was missing. Robert was so angry that he flew into a rage on the spot. The security guards who arrived forcibly lifted him up and threw him out of the property office. Robert was in a state of extreme embarrassment. He sat in the passenger seat cursing. After some analysis, he locked his suspicion on Ava. "It must be her, that's right, MD, I was really blind at the time, and I still thought she was gentle and lovely." After saying this, he realized that he had said something wrong and turned around in panic to gauge my reaction. I pretended not to care, but I couldn't stop sneering in my heart. He may never imagine that I was the mastermind behind the beating he received. I've wanted to fix him for a long time. The news of the community-wide power outage was told to me by the foreman over the phone. Because I often go to the site to supervise the work, and the process that day was what I cared about most was the on-site paint mixing. The foreman was afraid that I would miss it, so he called me immediately after the power outage. So I took advantage of this rare opportunity and asked Emily to find a few friends to trick him away in the name of giving him keys, so that I could vent my anger. You may ask me, why don't you divorce me after all this? I should get the evidence of cheating and make him leave the house. Divorce? Why? Just to vent your anger? I guess I must have missed Robert too much. To the last, why should I give him freedom even though he cheated on me twice? No, he is still useful to me. I want to tie him up tightly and make him work like a slave for me and my children. I believe that this day is not far away. I wrote an anonymous letter to report that Robert was playing with the feelings of young girls while he had a family. The anonymous letter was placed on the desk of Robert's company boss by the cleaner who was bribed by Emily in advance. At the same time, I leaked the information about Robert's #1 competitor in the company to Emily, and through Emily, I spread the video of Robert supporting his mistress to the owner group of the competitor. Being questioned by his superiors, talked about by colleagues, and watched closely by competitors, Robert's life in the company is becoming visibly difficult. He was frowning all day long, and when he got emotional he would tear his hair fiercely, scolding himself for being greedy for pleasure and giving his competitors an opportunity to take advantage. But more often, he was scolding Ava, calling her shameless for not only seducing him but also exposing him and ruining his career. He was in a state of panic every day, couldn't sleep well, and was in a very bad mood, which seriously affected his work. The company could no longer tolerate him, and after he made another wrong decision, it persuaded him to resign and gave him a considerable amount of financial compensation out of humanitarian considerations. I took this money, plus my previous savings, and bought an office building that I had been eyeing for a long time. This will be the business location of the dubbing studio I am about to set up. After 4 years of working in the audio field, I finally became my own boss. As for Robert, I had already arranged the most suitable position for him, free family nanny. Robert was reluctant at first. He fantasized about making a comeback and sent out his resume everywhere. But his competitors had ruined him so badly that he had no chance of recovery. Unable to achieve either high or low, Robert stayed at home in depression. But 2 children always need to be picked up and dropped off, right? When I was too busy preparing for the studio to go home on time, Robert had to take care of the children. Now he has become a very qualified free babysitter. When I come home tired from get off work, Robert will even take the initiative to hand me slippers, rub my shoulders, serve me meals, and play games with the children. So why do I want a divorce? After the divorce, I have to focus on my career and take care of the children, so my life will be hectic. But it's different with Robert around. He's more reliable than a nanny and doesn't ask for a nanny's salary. It's so cost-effective. My calculations about him were so detailed. All of this is entirely his own fault. Once, I married him at the best age of my life, trusted him completely, and shared the hardships with him. He has not yet fully fulfilled his promise. Now, let him work like a slave for me and the children with guilt. As for feelings, fuck them.